So yeah, I'm very happy to be joining everyone today and to have been able to participate over these last 2 days. I remember yesterday during Dr. Waldron's talk, she was talking about writing, letters to your political representatives. And I know this isn't something that I grew up with, so I was happy to make a little presentation on it, and hopefully we can learn a little bit about writing a letter. Okay, so I'm just going to talk very briefly about writing letters to elected officials as an effective tool sometimes if they read it, which surprisingly they actually do read them a lot, as an effective tool for political engagement and action. So next. So the first thing I want to talk about is who you can actually write a letter to. And so this is very Canada focused. I'd be very to hear other places, what methods you have to kind of contact and influence your political leaders and see if there's some overlap there or if you have different tips to share. But in Canada, we kind of have these 3 levels of the municipal, provincial, and federal. So at the municipal level, you can write to your city councillor in an email or a written letter. You can write to the mayor, deputy mayor. At the provincial level, you'll see 4 different titles. Those are all just different titles for the same position, and that's the person who's elected into the provincial parliament. So in Ontario, it's called the MPP. Nova Scotia, it's the MLA. Here in Newfoundland and Labrador, it's the MHA. And in Quebec, it's the MNA, but they're all pretty well at the same, it's pretty similar. And then at the federal level, we can write letters to our members of parliament and the prime minister. And a cool thing, which I didn't actually know, is that you can write these letters with no postage and they will be delivered, which is awesome. Next, please. So why send a letter? So just the fact that you've taken the time to write the letter carries a lot of weight. I know that this was kind of a little ratio I came across a few times. So it's this idea that one written letter is taken to represent about 100 people feeling that way. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. But I think that ratio just communicates that if you've taken the time to write this out and send it either by email or mail to a politician, it does carry a lot of weight. And it does remain an important political tool or a tool for political action in Canada. And also, many elected officials want to hear from their constituents, I find, especially at the municipal level. Next, please. So one quick tip off the top for letter writing is to just address the person appropriately. And so I found, you don't need that website. You can just Google search how to address my letter to, and then whoever you'll be sending it to. Because some of these elected officials have, they seem kind of archaic titles to me, but it's kind of like the proper way to address them. And then if you want someone to read your letter, you should address them the way that they should be addressed, even when it's the honorable or whatever, and the letters behind their name. So yeah, the Government of Canada has a website where you can look up someone's title and it will tell you how to address them. Next, please. So here's some quick tips. So one is to be polite. And I put that in quotes because I think, we've been talking about climate justice and the climate crisis and very legitimate anger and frustration that comes around that. That's just something we feel. And so I don't want, folks shouldn't have to feel like they need to tamp that down. But it's also the case that in this political letter writing, politicians might just put your letter aside if it seems, angry or whatever. So I kind of put be polite in quotes, and you can take that. It's like a strategy in order to be heard from politicians. So you can take that to mean, you know, however you want to talk to these people, I think is great. But it's just strategizing on if they'll read your letter and respond, and being strategic around that. Be concise, 1 to 2 pages max is the general advice. Describe your own interest and experience with the issue. So make it personal to you if you can. Be specific as specific as you can. So speak from your own experience and how the issue is affecting you. Have an ask in mind, like you're writing to a specific person. What do you want them to do? What do you want them to commit to? What action do you want them to take? And you can, it's also suggested that whoever you're writing to, you ask them to respond to your letter. And you can also request a meeting with the person that you're speaking with. And I wrote here as a pro tip to try organizing a letter writing campaign. 1, it can bring a lot of attention to the issue that you're writing about. And 2, it can also just bring a group of people together. So I think it has a dual purpose there. Next, please. So here's kind of quick thing in letter writing to remember. So focus on the issue, the impact of the issue on you and your community, and then what are you asking this person to do, or what are you asking from this person? Next, please. So this was just a quick example I wanted to bring in. This was from a CTV article, and it said that in 2019, the #1 issue addressed last year was about climate change. And on the right, you can see that 66,791 pieces of correspondence came into the Prime Minister's office from Canadians about climate change. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Next, please. I'm going to skip this just for the sake of time, but I wanted to bring it in just to show you an example of what one of those letters look like. You'll see a lot of organizations make it really easy for you. So it's just a template, and you can put in your information, and then they will send it along to the politician. In general, it is more impactful if you can take the time to personalize the letter, but these kind of template letters are also great. And I think I'll leave it there, and we can chat more in the breakout sessions. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. That was great. Some pro tips there, very, very helpful. So I appreciate that. Thank you. So we're going to, Roshni's going to put people into groups now. And so within the group, you're going to have a facilitator who will find a note taker and talk about, lessons learned, some highlights from the last 2 days of the symposium, and then also talk about what would you put in a letter, or what do you want to write down right then and there to put in a letter? What compels you to write? And is that to your MLA, your member of parliament, the Prime Minister? Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you so much for your work in the breakout rooms. And a reminder, if you're sending a paper letter to anyone, if you could take a picture of it and email me, so we know that a letter is going out there. We're just interested to see what action people are taking. Or if you're emailing a letter to anyone, if you could CC or BCC ACIC, you can look in the chat box. My email is there. That would be really great to have. So thank you so much for that. And now we're going to send it over to Jennifer.
Hi again, everyone. I'm going to be brief. It's my pleasure to introduce Eric Smith, who's on the ACIC Board of Directors, for those of you who don't know him. Eric was the chair of the Symposium Committee this year and has put, I mentioned at the beginning of the conference how much effort Janelle and the ACIC team has put in. On the flip side of that, Eric provided great leadership as the chair of the committee and was instrumental in coming up with such a great theme and bringing panelists forward. So we'd like to thank you, Eric, so much for your time and effort in this. Eric is the project manager for Engage Women's Leader Leadership and Active Citizenship Program at the Coady Institute. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Eric, for the final words.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. I'll try to keep it brief. But first, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I'd especially like to acknowledge our local community of Buckankeg. I'll do my best to do justice to what I've heard over the last 2 days. I think it's really important for people like me with privilege to sit back and actively listen, really listen. And tasked with providing some concluding remarks, I've been an active listener throughout the conference on this critical issue of climate justice. We've heard stories of environmental racism in Mi'kmaq and further away, of the disastrous effects of climate change in Nunavut, Kenya, Guyana, and beyond. But we've also heard stories about community and cooperation, people building intergenerational bridges, working with women who are on the ground, who are the context experts, and being connected with content experts, the academics and advocates who can support them. We've heard stories of how we can build hope and unite voices through resisting systems of inequality, oppression, and power. The Nigerian storyteller Ben Okri says that in a fractured age, when cynicism is God, here is a possible heresy. We live by stories, we also live in them. One way or another, we are living the stories planted in us early or along the way, or we are also living the stories we planted, knowingly or unknowingly, in ourselves. We live stories that either give our lives meaning or negate it with meaninglessness. If we change the stories we live by, quite possibly we change our lives. We've heard stories from diverse, globally minded but locally grounded practitioners, advocates, researchers, and more, all of whom are actively working towards not only a climate just world, but a just world, full stop. Economic justice, gender justice, racial justice, and all other forms of justice. So what kind of stories do we want to plant and grow so that we change the way that we live? Which stories that you heard over the last 2 days will you remember and share? How will you amplify the stories you have heard by using your clout to elevate and empower others? Our last session provided one method through letter writing. Here are a few of the key takeaways and key themes that we heard from those sessions. One, we're all interconnected. What happens in Haiti affects what happens in Canada and vice versa. We need to build our networks to empower one another to tackle the shared issues that we face. 2, the current moment in Southwest Nova Scotia shows that the issues here are similar to those elsewhere. Racism, land grabbing, lack of community ownership and management are legacies of colonization in Canada and around the world. 3, that means that we also need to take local actions and build local movements to confront inequalities, oppression, and violent systems. And 4, we have to build leadership and empower others, especially those marginalized people who have been at the forefront of this work and are often the ones that cause the least harm but suffer the most. So these give us a starting point for our stories, but are not the end. The American-Canadian author Thomas King, who is of Cherokee descent and wrote The Inconvenient Indian and provided the Massey lecture, The Truth About Stories, warns us that once a story is told, it cannot be taken back. Once told, it is loose in the world. So you have to be careful with the stories you tell. He goes on, perhaps we shouldn't be surprised with the environmental ethics we have, the business ethics we have, or the political ethics, or any of the myriad other codes of conduct suggested by our actions. After all, we've created them. We've created the stories that allow them to exist and flourish. They didn't come out of nowhere. They didn't arrive from another planet. Want a different ethic? Tell a different story. I plan to take what I've heard at the conference and that lesson to heart, and to tell the stories we've heard about communities and cooperation, about resilience and resistance, about justice in all its forms, and I hope that you will too. I'd like to offer a sincere thanks to the panelists who've been gracious enough to share their stories and their energy with us. While I can't name them all, they all provided unique insights into their lives and approaches to change. I'd also like to thank the ACIC staff who have been involved in supporting the symposium. I can't name them all, but I'll point to Raushni, who was instrumental in graphic design, communications, and technical behind the scenes support to help things go smoothly. To Leanne and Jackie, who played a key role in the youth delegation and supported the participation of 20 youth from 6 countries. And a big thank you to Janelle, who kept me on track as chair and made my job easy. And of course, a big thanks to the Symposium Committee, Della Webster, Valerie Pilgrim, Janelle Frail, Jackie Dowling, Louise Webb, Leo Chevry, and Leanne Lavelle. I'm sure I've missed names, and I apologize for that. A symposium with a core audience of 4 provinces available across Canada and with participation from across the globe cannot come together without many people making it happen. And on behalf of the board, a big thank you to the participants for taking time out of your days and lives to participate, to ask questions and listen, and to share stories. I hope to see you all again next year, hopefully in person in Nova Scotia for the 2022 ACIC Symposium. Thank you all. And Janelle, please go ahead.
Thanks so much, Eric. I really appreciate that. Appreciate your words and your summary. That was really great. So yeah, last little tidbits. Later on today, Roshni's going to be emailing all participants an evaluation link, and we're hoping that you'll be able to fill that out. It helps us with our reporting. It helps us to do better, learn how to work with Zoom better. And also to say that Eric will also be having one more post-event networking opportunity. So in the link Eric just shared, feel free to go there for about a half hour where we have some time for people to network, kind of like a coffee break space, as if we were live in person. So a big thank you again to everyone, the full team at ACIC, and everyone on the committee too. I do appreciate all your work and time, and a big thanks to all the participants as well. So big thanks to everyone. Take care.